So I just had the quarters mocked up on this thing for the first time, at least this side over here. They look pretty sweet on there. We're gonna save that till the end of the video, once we get towards that, once we replace what we're gonna be working on in this video here. But I needed to get those on just to get some baseline measurements, kind of see how they all fit up against the roof skin, the tail panel, the trunk gutters, and then this deck filler panel here. And that's exactly what I'm gonna be working on in this video here, getting this guy replaced, the whole lower window channel, which as you can see is pretty shot, along with these corners right here, some rust repair up in this section, and then cleaning up all of the rest of the roof structure here. My original plan was to try and save this piece here, but after some consideration and thinking, I decided to go through and I'm just gonna replace the whole thing. The top skin of it isn't bad. Everything else is, like all this is pitted right here, and if I'm replacing these trunk gutters, I don't want to just have this section of pitted metal. I could go through and, you know, make a whole new corner here. I'd have to make new sides, a new channel for this. Underneath is pretty shot as well, so it just made more sense for me to go ahead and get a whole new piece. It'll just be done right. I know that way it'll be good. Same thing with this channel here. I was thinking about making my own, but as you can see, this has a curve that goes across it this way. So instead of just a normal V channel, it also has a bend in it, and then on the ends it kind of flips up into these corner pieces. So these corner pieces here, they were like $38 from AMD. So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. It saves me a ton of time and stress from trying to make my own. So that's what these guys are right here. These will go in the corners. If I remember right, I think they're gonna go something like this up against the car and the rear channel here, just like that. And then right here, I have the, I guess the little lower channel that has a lip that goes on top of the package tray. And then this big piece right here is the full on rear deck filler panel. It also has the front half of the trunk gutters, so these 90 corners, along with the back gutter that runs all the way along the back side of this panel here. If you remember what I was saying at the end of the previous video, I was talking about building my own package tray, and I wasn't sure if I was going to be doing that now or do some sheet metal stuff first. I decided this is going to be the best route, because once I can get this all set in place, I can start getting the quarters in place. That'll be all good, and then I can go through and cut out the package tray and mess with that later. We'll get into this more once I start getting the new metal in place here, but as you can see, this one is essentially a part of the rear package tray. It's just welded along the edges right here. So instead of welding a new piece back to the package tray, I'll probably just use some Clecos, get that set in place, but I can use the package tray as a good measuring point and mounting surface for that. These corners here are going to be a little bit tricky because there's some spot welds on the roof structure, so I'm not so sure how that's going to work out. I like to leave as much of this here as possible, although it will be getting cut out. And in case you can't tell why, it's because of stuff like this right here. Some pretty bad, I wouldn't even say bad, that's just how they did it back in the day, but I don't like that. It drives me insane. There won't be any speakers back here, and I got a pretty cool design in my head of what I want this all to look like. I officially got everything cut off that I needed cut off, and here you can really see just how bad some of this rust was. It is pretty much just a bucket under that deck filler panel there, and I mean it's just so full of water. As you can see, we had some holes that rusted through, especially back there. And granted, I could have cut this section off and, you know, wear wheeled this and sprayed some converter on it, but it's pretty pitted. Like I said, it just wasn't worth it to save it. And all this stuff here was as well. Even if I were to kind of clean it up, it still wouldn't be brand new there. Got all the little scraps, little tabs cut off, starting to mock up this new piece here. So this is pretty simple, just gonna lay in there like so. I think these end tabs got a little bent in shipping, but those should bend up and those will get spot welded onto those corner pieces here. This one's definitely worse than the other side, so we're gonna go ahead and replace both of those as well, obviously. Lower window channel piece is officially mounted to the package tray. I went off the side measurements, so kind of where this piece overlaps this line to the edge of this lip. It's 5 1/4, exactly 5 1/4 on that side, and then the center line matches up with the center on the package tray as well. Got that all clecoed and clamped in place, so let us say stationary for now. As you can see on this side, I got that corner piece completely cut out. I had to cut out a little bit of that package tray there just to get the rest of the spot weld out, kind of grind that down. Just started to mock up the deck filler panel itself to see where we're at. I'm using the old trunk gutters and tail panel here just kind of as reference points to see where this is going to go. I really wish the shipping didn't wreck this thing, but that little dent in there, thanks FedEx, not a huge issue. This piece here is kind of twisted, not a huge issue, but it's a little tricky to kind of visualize exactly what I need because I don't know what angle this needs to be on now. So I'll have to get the quarters mocked up to see exactly where this is going to go in place, but I just need to visualize that. So I'm going to go ahead, tear this side out right here and start getting the new corners in place. And I think I got an idea that'll turn out pretty cool with these pieces right here. I had to spend a few nights going through getting this mocked up, on and off, seeing where it best fit. Not that anything is wrong with the quarter panel itself, but I essentially have no car left. So trying to mate this up to this, going off previous measurements, looking at measurements online, because as you guys know, what was left of the car was essentially just like crumbs of a 70 Charger. So it was not necessarily the easiest to get, you know, accurate measurements off of. Having the car on the table definitely helps because it gives you a flat point to measure to. But I got this quarter panel on at a pretty solid point. Put the door on first to line up the body lines, make sure all that was aligned right. It's going to take a little bit to get the gaps right, so that'll be a whole ordeal in itself, but all in all, it's looking pretty decent thus far. You got to think though, this quarter panel mounts to the car itself, and 1.2, 3, 4, 5. You got to have then the deck filler go there, it should be 6. This trunk gutter go here, it should be 7. You got the tail panel here to be 8. If you're doing the lower valance, it would be 9. So there's about, I don't know, 9, 10 different contact points just in the quarter panel itself, going to other pieces of metal, going to the roof skin, going to the shell. So there's a lot to line up, and if one thing doesn't totally line up, it could throw something else completely off. So it's just a lot of, you know, trying to see what works best, fitting it up against other panels. It just takes time. There's no way around it, and especially when, you know, the car is torn apart to this level, you can't just toss it on, and then if the tail panel, you know, like was here, the wheel well was there, you can't just massage the panel to fit something like that. So it was a little overwhelming. I went ahead and just re-leveled the table, put it back on the adjustable legs so it's in a solid standpoint right now. I mean, it takes probably about, I don't know, 30 to 45 minutes to get this thing exactly where I want. We're just bouncing around between corners, having multiple different levels. So that in itself is a process as well. But right now, we're at a pretty solid point. Like I said, the quarter is where I want it on this side. The tail panel is where I want it. It is at the right height across the back there. It's lined up pretty good with the rear end here. This will probably need some more tweaking. I just needed to put some clecos in it just to hold it together. And the reason that I needed this whole quarter panel on was to go ahead and get this piece and then the rear corner pieces in the correct spot. Now, you wouldn't think a tiny piece like this would be not challenging, but so much work to get set in place, but when you want it lined up correctly and want it in the right spot to line up with the window channel here, it all goes back to the quarter panel placement, which then goes back to where the door is placed and where the tail panel is placed. So you can kind of see how these pieces all integrate with each other here. But like I mentioned, this is in a good spot. This piece is perfectly centered and squared up on the package tray here. So now it is time to go through and get these guys in place. Factory would have had them something along the lines of this. You can see the old spot welds I had to drill out from the old one, and there's kind of this little raised up lip where this would just get sandwiched in here. This would then line up with the now rusted out kind of window channel lip right there, and it would sit in place something along the lines of this. But my plan here is to get this in place. So what I'll do is I'll take the one for this side, line it up with the window channel, now that the quarter is in the correct place, line it up and interlock it to this lower window lip where that's supposed to sit in there. We'll get that all in place. Say it's gonna end up just being this spot, for example. I'll go through on the inside, trace it with a Sharpie where the metal overlaps itself, and then I'm gonna cut out the section where it'll be overlapped. So if it's just overlapped, I don't know, this 1/2 inch along this strip right here, I'm gonna cut that out, gonna butt weld this up to the roof structure, just like so. Have to go through, hammer and dolly, probably this kind of bottom lip to get it exactly the same shape, because this kind of has a weird radius as it comes down, but it also has a radius as it goes across. So long story short, this will be essentially blended into the roof structure and will be flush. I'm gonna have to go through and replace all this, which will then tie into this top piece right here. And then I'll have to go through and make this kind of mount to this lower channel right here and look all flush as well. Right here, I obviously have that centerpiece, which is technically the lower window channel, and to make it work with the modified corner pieces that I'm making, I had to go ahead and add on these little extensions. So I got these bent up right there. You can see that just like so. I'll have to go through and kind of straighten out this top lip. Probably just got bent up in shipping there. So get those welded on, trim the bottom because I won't need this bottom lip on there. It'll basically just be an upside down L, so I'll have that 90. Get those welded on, get that smoothed out, toss this back in the car, measure it up on the ends, then trim it exactly where it needs to be. And then this piece, modification wise, should be done. Pretty simple. Driver's side's coming along pretty good. I went ahead and made this whole new piece here, as you guys saw me make, because this was completely rotted out. So got that all welded up, smoothed down. Still need some, final sanding to get it where I want to be, but that's looking pretty good thus far. Got this corner piece blended in pretty nice. Had to spend some time, you know, kind of hammering, dialing it to get the exact shape of this replacement panel to match the roof structure there. So that's all good. Like I showed you guys earlier, I had to weld on the extensions onto these pieces. So you can see that's pretty much what it's gonna look like once it's finished. Obviously I need to weld this gap up, but this side here is complete. That is level across there. I have perfect 90 going there. Got my measurements, laid the level across the table here, obviously because that would just be dropping to the ground. So that's what I'm using to get my measurements for this side. Starting to transfer them over to this side to get this side dialed in here. This gap was a little bit bigger than I would have liked, but it's gonna get welded up anyway. So we'll get that taken care of there. This radius matches nice with this. This will blend in nice with that once it's all set and done. And I went ahead and bit the bullet the other week and bought a new laser level because my old one here was kind of on its last legs, and I like this one because you can actually see a 90 on it. So that's what I'm using for right here. You can see I got this lined up just with that edge right there. I have to trim this piece back a little to get to that point, and then have to go ahead and trim this off flush right there. Might have to add a little tacks to the bottom of that to make that line up, but it's looking pretty decent so far. So go ahead, cut that off, get this to a perfect 90, weld this seam up, weld this seam up, and then pretty much done with the replacement pieces here. Well, there we go. Got these pieces all welded up, sanded, and smoothed out. Got these corners all squared up, so it's looking really good. Really happy how this piece turned out. Got this all integrated in there, and that is a much more simple, clean look. Beforehand, this piece here would have overlaid on top of this piece, I don't know, maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch with a spot weld. And I just wanted that to be all one piece right there. So it looks pretty good. Happy with how that all came to be. Definitely a lot better than the rust that was on there before. You can see these are all the pieces I had to cut out. I think this was off the passenger side one. This one was pretty rough. And then this was the driver's side here, as well as some of the other pieces that I had to cut out of these corners here. So I think like this was about here or something. So that is all gone. That is really nice. And here you can kind of see my vision for this back piece starting to come together here. So between these pieces here that I made, you know, comes down to the roof structure. These corner pieces tie into this. This is all level across this. So basically it gives me a nice squared up point all the way across. Same thing on this side, and that's exactly what I wanted. So I'm happy with the way that that came out to be. I'm not totally sure if I'm gonna do a full piece across this. I feel like that's a pretty wide piece and that would be kind of heavy. So I don't know exactly what I want to do. Maybe I'll have a corner like radius up here and then it'll drop down. But either way, there's going to be a strip that goes across the back that'll have some dimple dies in it. So I just got to decide how, I guess, high I want that to be. And then I hate to do this because it would be nice if this was all, you know, made out of one piece, but I might have to make another piece that comes to about here. That kind of follows this line right here that'll indent on that, which shouldn't be too difficult because now that I bought that brake there, I can go ahead and make a nice bend. That's how I was able to make these pieces right here and these corner extensions. It was like a $50 brake from Harbor Freight, so it's not the greatest, but it bends metal better than a vise and a hammer. So I'll take it, and it allowed me to get these pieces done, so it's definitely a huge help. But going forward, I'd like to get probably a better one that actually, you know, holds down the metal rather than having that bar that holds it down. It's kind of a bad design, but whatever. 50 bucks, it got these pieces done, so call that a win. A lot of people probably think that this was all a waste of time, you know, making all these different pieces here. I could have just overlapped the two pieces like factory did, because in the end, you're probably not going to see this and most people won't even notice. But for my plans for the interior here, you are going to see a lot of the metal on the inside here. So it's about 3/4 of the way done. Still have to metal finish the inside, but once the package tray is out, I can go ahead and do that. It'll be a lot easier that way. Plus, practicing on pieces like this is gonna make it a lot easier when it comes for making pieces, you know, for the engine bay or for the interior. Because I've never built a 70 Charger rear window channel from scratch like that before. So it's just, you know, something else to add to the book. Sure, it took me some time, but once again, when it comes to making those pieces, that will be very visible or very important. It'll be a lot easier, and you know, by the time I get to that, I'll have some experience doing this type of work. So just all kind of adds up at the end. Plus, my goal of having this thing be completely rust free once it's all done and finished is getting closer and closer to that. So now that these two sides are done, I got this middle piece in. The next step for the roof structure is going to be to go through and wear wheel all of this surface rust on here. Got to rust convert it, got to prime this stuff so that doesn't flash rust. There's one pinhole that I started messing with over here that I'll either have to make a patch for or weld that up. But other than that, the roof structure is solid. There's no through rust, it's all just scaly stuff. So get that cleaned up, throw some converter on it, and then down the line, I still have to go through and make an end cap for this piece here, but we're gonna leave that until the last thing possible because in order to do that, obviously I'm gonna have to cut these braces off here. I went ahead and wire wheeled and rust converted the entirety of the roof structure on this side here. I wanted to do both, but I can't reach everything on that side. So I figured I'd at least do this side so that way I can put this quarter on, start messing with that, but that looks pretty good. I bought some of this Seymour stuff a while back. I bought a couple different things from them. So I've been itching to use this rust converter because it actually leaves like a black coating on it, opposed to like a normal rust converter where it's kind of like a clear coat, if you want to call it that. So been looking forward to use that. So far I like it. It's a nice satin color. That looks good on there. I need to go through, tape out the actual lip where the other panels are going to lay on, throw some weld through primer on that, then do the same process to this side of the roof structure. Well, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up for this video here. Pretty stoked with the way that whole channel turned out, because I've always like been scared to do pieces like that or thought it was super challenging, which it is, but after doing that section, I feel a little more confident in doing that in other areas. So if I decide to keep this roof skin and replace all this up there, I'm actually kind of looking forward to doing that. So it'll just depend if I end up keeping that roof skin or going with a full new one. So we'll see when the time comes. Other than that, you can see I'm starting to mock up this middle piece that's going to go across the back here. Just seeing that, just as cardboard as is, has got me excited. So I'm running into some issues with how I'm going to make this piece because it's actually pretty complicated. It's not just a giant rectangle, but we'll get into that in the next video. That has been just on my mind the past few days, just constantly thinking what and how I'm going to make that piece, because it's kind of a big piece. It's going to tie all of these things together between, you know, the past few videos I've been making all these interior pieces. So that'll be cool when the time comes. But other than that, appreciate everyone watching. A lot more to go here, but that's definitely a good step in the right direction.